Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 216.
It took 15 votes, but finally Kevin McCarthy got the support he needed from his fellow Republicans to become Speaker of the House.
It took a little longer than we thought, but if there's one thing I want the country to hopefully learn about me this week is that I will never give up.
The next Speaker of the 118th Congress, Kevin McCarthy.
Now joining us, one of the people holding up an agreement to fund the government, Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz. Congressman, thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thank you. I'm glad I get to respond to your monologue, because if you're saying that I'm standing in the way of all the Republican wins, I'd love you to enumerate them. Watching my friend and mentor Jim Jordan, it was quite painful, because he started by saying we should only pick one fight, the border. But then as the interview went on, he said, well, we should pick a second fight, Jack Smith. And by the time the interview rounded out, he was saying that we shouldn't be funding Ukraine without a plan. And yet the very continuing resolution that you and Jim Jordan seem to be for continues to have $300 million more for Ukraine. So I think we ought to fight on all fronts. I think the border is very important, and the best way for us to advance the Republican border policies is to pass the Department of Homeland Security appropriations bill, do that along with veterans, defense, ag, state and foreign ops. We'll have 73% of the discretionary budget funded, and if, the Department of Labor and Education have to shut down for a few days as we get their appropriations in line, that's certainly not something that is optimal, but I think it's better than continuing on the current path we are to America's financial ruin.
Congressman, I understand, and that is why you are on this program this morning, because I want to give you a fair shot, and I want to get you heard. So tell me why you are threatening Speaker McCarthy and trying to shut down this government at a time that the Republicans have finally gotten some upper hands here in terms of wins, able to investigate President Biden on what looks like bribery.
Yeah, we don't put our pencils down in the investigation of President Biden during a shutdown, so the premise is false. Second, if Kevin McCarthy was actually serious about pursuing the Bidens, he would have sent Hunter Biden a subpoena by now. That's how you know this is sort of failure theater that you're observing. During the first year of Democrat control of the Congress, they brought in Donald Trump Jr. 3 times over nothing. Over a nothing burger. And so we seem to be fundamentally unserious in our oversight. But what is serious is the fact that we are spending more than $7 trillion a year, bringing in around $5 trillion a year. And I want to fund the government. I'm not pro-shutdown, but the way to fund the government is not the same way we've been doing it since the mid-90s, where it's one up or down vote on the entire government all at once. We should have separate single-subject spending bills. Kevin McCarthy promised that in January. He is in breach of that promise. So I'm not here to hold the government hostage. I'm here to hold Kevin McCarthy to his word. Don't give Kevin McCarthy credit for the fact that we're moving on to these 4 appropriations bills. That was the deal that House conservatives foisted upon Kevin McCarthy. When he couldn't just move the big spending bills without moving the bills that cut spending, we said, no, no, no. You have to move bills like the state and foreign ops bill, because we don't think we should be borrowing money from China to go fund gay pride parades in Prague or LGBTQ seminars in Indonesia. We don't think that that's a good use of our money. And the only way to do this, Maria, is line by line. Kevin wants it in one big up or down vote, keep the government open, shut it down. I'm saying single subject spending bills. It's the only way to break the fever and liberate ourselves from this out of control spending.
Well, he's doing the 4 bills next week. So
because we're making him. Because we're making him.
But he's doing it. So to push now to blow up all of the wins that you all have had now.
Which wins? Please enumerate them.
Well, okay. Well, how about the fact that he has set up a weaponization committee to investigate the DOJ, whether they're involved in a cover-up?
That's
how about
process.
The fact that he has... Hold on.
Wait
how
a
about
second.
the fact that he... Hold on. How about the fact that he has set up the China Select Committee to keep China to account? And, of course, he has launched this inquiry into impeachment, potentially, for President Biden. Is that not what you want?
None of those things are deliverables. Those are steps in a process. Setting up a committee is an end unto itself, only in Washington, D.C. The American people demand results. Hold on, I'll let you talk, Maria.
Okay, go ahead.
These committees have done nothing to reduce inflation. They've done nothing to actually constrain the Biden government. We can set up committees and have hearings and yell at people, but at the end of the day, if we still send the check to fund a weaponized government, having a weaponization subcommittee is little relief to the American American people. And if any of this was serious, we would be sending out subpoenas and compelling process the way the January 6th committee did. We should be operating like them. Instead, we're playing patty cake with the Bidens. We're allowing them to get away with it. And we're funding it. We're sending the money. If we were serious, use the power of the purse.
The Speaker joined me a week ago and told me that he will, in fact, subpoena Hunter Biden. He said at the appropriate time. But let's be clear.
It's been 8 months.
We would not
when do you
know
think
any
the
of this.
appropriate time
We would
is?
not know
How many
any of
months
this.
should the American people have to wait before that subpoena is sent? You tell me.
We would not know anything that we know about the Biden family. 176 suspicious activity reports, 20 shell companies set up while he was vice president, the whistleblower testimony. We would not know any of this if not for those committees that he set up exposing all of this. We just heard from Merrick Garland last week.
But you have to follow that to its natural conclusion. It's not enough to expose facts that get people angry and animated. You then have to follow those facts to a conclusion and to accountability. You see, that's what Republicans are bad at. We're great at having the hearings and putting on the performances, but if you're still going to underwrite Biden's debt, which is what Kevin McCarthy did joining with Democrats on the debt limit deal, and if you're going to join up with Democrats to still fund his government, Merrick Garland will sit there and he'll answer my tough questions and he'll smirk at me or he'll obfuscate, and then guess what? He goes back to the Justice Department and the coffers are full with money from the American taxpayer that gets turned against the brave patriots in this country. What about the January 6th tapes? Kevin promised he was going to release those. I'm still waiting.
Well, the January 6th tapes are available to anybody who wants to see them. He gave them and allowed Tucker Carlson and his team to see them. Congressman, it is true.
No, Maria, they are not available to anyone who wants to see them. That is a factual misstatement. They have been curated for some people in the media and some defense attorneys, but any American cannot see any of the January 6th tapes. That is a false statement.
Are you not right now indirectly working with Democrats because you are going to allow Chuck Schumer to come up with a continuing resolution next week to fund the government? That's what your actions are doing. That's why some people feel this is a personal vendetta you have against the Speaker.
No, my vendetta is against a Washington system that allows corruption to put the interests of lobbyists and PACs above the interests of the American people. Kevin McCarthy facilitates that system, and I do deeply resent that. But I'm not working with Chuck Schumer or any other Democrat. I am the one working with House conservatives to require single-subject spending bills. No. You guys criticize me for forcing single-subject spending bills. Then you give Kevin McCarthy the credit for doing it. The reality is this is the only way to liberate ourselves from a bad system.
I think the single bills sound
then
right.
Why hasn't he done them? It's September. We knew September 30th was coming all year, and Kevin McCarthy has been dilatory. He's been fiddling like Nero as Rome burns.
As we understand it, they're doing this upcoming week. So we will be watching
because
that.
we are making them. They are doing it with a political gun to their head, and you are welcome, America, and we're going to keep making them do it.
Congressman, thank you.
News this morning from Congressman Matt Gaetz, who says he's going to seek a motion to vacate. He's going to try to oust you as Speaker of the House.
Well, that's nothing new. He's tried to do that from the moment I ran for office. Look.
Well, this time he says he's going to keep going. May not get there before the 15th ballot, but it took 15 for Kevin McCarthy. He says he's coming for you. Can you survive?
Yes, I'll survive. You know, this is personal with Matt. Matt voted against the most conservative ability to protect our border, secure our border. He's more interested in securing TV interviews than doing something. He wanted to push us into a shutdown, even threatening his own district with all the military people there who would not be paid, only because he wants to take this motion. So be it, bring it on, let's get over with it, and let's start governing. If he's upset because he tried to push us in a shutdown, and I made sure government didn't shut down, then let's have that fight.
But so you're not accomplishing anything here. I mean,
that's not true.
Well, you don't have the votes to remove him.
Well, by the way, I don't know until we have him. And by the way, I might not have him the first time, but I might have him before the 15th ballot. That's the number of ballots Kevin McCarthy needs.
So are you going to do this every day like you had suggested? Or are you going to go through this process of voting over and over and over again?
I am relentless, and I will continue to pursue this objective. And if all the American people see is that it is a uniparty that governs them, and that it is always the Biden, McCarthy, Jeffries government that makes dispositive decisions on spending, then I am seeding the fields of future primary contests to get better Republicans in Washington who will actually tackle these deficits and debts. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House.
The gentleman will state the form of his resolution.
Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant. Resolved that the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
Going to keep coming up repeatedly?
It could. It seems very personal with Matt. It doesn't look like he's looking out for the country or the institution. I mean, I gave this quote away. You ought to read, maybe I'll give it to you later in the process of what canon.
Are you ruling out any sort of power-sharing agreement with Democrats or any sort of deals with Democrats?
That doesn't work. Look, I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative one that gets things done. Look, I know we live in our government's designed to have compromise, but look, we're in the majority. You don't surrender. Do you work with the other side? Yeah, and that's what I've done.
What do you say when he says that this is personal for you?
You know, for some people, policy failures are recast as personal because their own failures are personally embarrassing to them. This isn't personal. I can cite to you the specific elements of House rules that have been violated. Kevin McCarthy agreed to a rule that we would have 72 hours to read legislation. He blew past that. Kevin McCarthy agreed to a rule that we would not put anything over $100 million on the suspension agenda so that it couldn't be amended. He blew past that. Kevin McCarthy agreed to the Hastert rule, which is that you would never use the Democrats to roll a majority of the majority. On the last Ukraine supplemental, 101 Republicans voted for it, 117 Republicans voted against it. So does this sound personal to you? I'm pointing to specific things that Kevin agreed to that he hasn't complied with. He's just trying to subjugate his real and significant breaches of our agreement as some sort of personal dispute. But that's just more about him than it says about what we're trying to do to change Washington.
Congressman, given this breaking news, are you going to vote to oust Kevin McCarthy from his job?
Well, really, I see it as two things. One, do I vote against my friend Kevin McCarthy, or do I go with my conscience? That's kind of where I'm at, and I'm currently praying about it. But I would, if it was right now, I would vote to oust him. Yes.
The question, of course, is if he's ousted, who would replace Kevin McCarthy? Are there any names being floated that you've heard?
Well, I'm joined off to my side here by Chip Roy. He'd be a wise choice, but I'm sure now he's scared that I've said his name. He's probably going to look under his car before he starts it as he walks out of here.
Expecting Democrats to back you up then?
No, I personally am not.
Do you need their help to remain in leadership?
No. If five Republicans go with Democrats, then I'm out. So it's whether.
Likely.
Probably so.
Great caucus meeting. It was extremely unified. We're standing behind our leader, Hakeem Jeffries. He is the person that should be Speaker of the House, and there is reason after reason to just let Republicans deal with their own problems. I mean, they can let them wallow in their pigsty of incompetence and inability to govern. They are destroying our institution.
But what does that mean? Does that mean voting present? Like, how is this going to play out?
We are not voting in any way that would help save Speaker McCarthy.
I rise to raise a question. What was the secret side deal on Ukraine? House Democrats and President Biden have said that as Speaker McCarthy was asking Republicans to vote for a continuing resolution so as to avoid having to take the Senate's plus up in Ukraine money, that the Speaker of the House was actually cutting a side deal to bring Ukraine legislation to this floor with President Biden and House Democrats. So let me get this straight. To extend Joe Biden's spending and Joe Biden's policy priorities, the Speaker of the House gave away to Joe Biden the money for Ukraine that Joe Biden wanted.